The following episode of Fascinating Fiction covers some rather dark and serious topics, including depression, the difficulty of recovery, PTSD, self-harm, and even a brief mention of suicide. Should you be sensitive to these subjects or have younger viewers with you, please consider carefully before watching this episode. In the case that you're dealing with thoughts of self-harm or know someone who might possibly be dealing with them, please call the suicide hotline 988. Above all, take care of yourselves. I think it's been well established by now that Avatar: The Last Airbender is considered to be one of, if not the best cartoon ever made. With a near-timeless story, well-developed characters, and a depth that even some of the biggest franchises in the world don't have, it's truly considered to be one of the shining stars of Western animation. By contrast, its sequel series, Legend of Korra, isn't as favored. Part of this is simply because its predecessor was simply so well loved that there was nothing Korra could do to compare. And part of it was because Nickelodeon didn't support the show that much, actually delaying it from their original planned premiere because it starred a female avatar. But even with all this in mind, there are parts of Legend of Korra that are among the best and also darkest cartoons to have ever come out of Nickelodeon. For Korra's 10th anniversary, let's talk about the one I feel is one of the strongest episodes of anything that was produced by Avatar, Korra Alone. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. So let's cut the head off this Hydra before it grows to consume me. Yes, Korra Alone is a name, if not in themes, a nod to one of the best episodes that the original Avatar series ever produced, Zuko Alone. There's actually a lot of parallels you can draw between the two episodes, as well as the two characters, but it cuts a bit different here because of their respective experiences. But to truly explain why, we've actually got a bit more to cover first. Being the second episode of the fourth season, Korra Alone takes place sometime after a fight with a character who can be arguably considered to be one of the most dangerous villains in the entire series, Zahir. While I won't go into all the direct details of the fight against him, I will be showing what you need to understand to really get a grasp of what happened to Korra and how it relates to the episode we're talking about. Having fallen captive to Zahir and the rest of the Red Lotus, the villains plan to do something beyond just killing Korra. As the Avatar, all Korra's death would do is have someone else be reborn with her powers in the future. By forcing Korra into the Avatar state and killing her then, Zahir will be able to end the cycle of rebirth once and for all. The way he does this is by forcing poison into her body through metal bending, where it will slowly kill her until Korra's body forces it into the Avatar state to keep herself alive. With the poison running through her veins, Korra starts to hallucinate, seeing all the previous villains she's fought against, the Equalist leader Amon, the corrupt waterbender Unalaq, and Vaatu, a spirit of darkness and chaos who fused with Unalaq to become the Dark Avatar. They taunt her with her weakness, claiming, as they all had when she fought them, that the world doesn't need the Avatar, that there's no use in fighting them anymore, and that she should simply let go.
Let go. Let go. Let go.
God, I forgot just how intense some of these scenes here are. And this isn't even the episode we're truly wanting to talk about, considering I'm covering this for the simple sake of setup. Regardless, this is the closest point in the series that Korra has ever come to death for both her and the Avatar state, and the events have left a mark on her. This is where we get to the episode Korra Alone itself, starting with us finding Korra in an unusual setup. For the first time since we've been introduced to the character, she's in earthbender garb and has also cut her hair. She looks worn and exhausted, with the audience seeing that she's been through better days as she nearly gets run down by a car and then ends up experiencing more hallucinations. It's as she tries to recall her friends that we end up in a flashback where, after the battle with Zahir, Korra ends up returning to the Southern Water Tribe to heal, still wheelchair bound and deciding that some time to recover is needed. Even within the safety of the home where she grew up, however, she is still experiencing nightmares from that final battle. The particular scene of Zahir trying to asphyxiate her by removing all the air from her lungs being shown as what she's forced to relive. Finding her daughter having trouble sleeping, with this being a constant thing that Korra has been dealing with for weeks now that they've come home, Korra's mother says something more should be done, suggesting Katara because of the woman's ability for healing. After being told what she has to do to help heal herself by Katara, we spend the next several scenes with Korra as she struggles to regain use of her body. This is something that you almost never see in children's media, much less a cartoon: the road to recovery. Unlike a lot of the other parts of Korra's tenure as the Avatar, there was no standing victory or confident outcome against Zahir. Instead, Korra was on death's door, with something that wormed its way through her system and did so much damage to her she couldn't even physically stand up, much less do her duties as the Avatar. It's the scene here of her struggling to walk while using 2 balance beams that really hammers it home. Korra is hurt in a way that the magical healing waters that the show has always used up to this point can't do anything to repair. She has to work at it, push her body that has refused to respond to do things that she had once taken for granted. And as she fails more than once, it gets to the point where she snaps at Katara.
Of course I'm frustrated! A crazy man poisoned me, and now I can't dress myself, or cook for myself, or do anything for myself.
This comes as a bit of a double whammy here, both from the point of the character as well as its parallels to real life. What Korra is going through is very much something that has happened to many other people, either through accidents or through wars and other violence, and are faced with having to recover the ability to do basic things. It's a difficult, arduous process that some people are never able to truly push past, and it's a heart-wrenching experience to go through. But for our main character here, it's even worse. Korra is the Avatar, the Chosen One. She's supposed to represent not only the balance of the elements, but of the people of the world. Should something go wrong or someone decide to disrupt that balance, it's supposed to be her job to take care of it. Being left in the state she's in not only serves as a massive blow to who she is as a person, someone who was always capable and assertive before, but it leads credence to the words of her villains from before, that the world doesn't need the Avatar, that she's pointless, and that everything any of her foes have ever done to her was the right decision. There are fewer moments in either this series or Last Airbender that are more poignant than this.
I'm tired, Katara. I'm so tired.
We find ourselves back in the present as Korra is dealing with hallucinations, but they come in one particular fashion: herself in the Avatar state with a chain of platinum wrapped around one arm, as it had been when she fought Zahir. It continues to plague her throughout the entire episode, chasing after her, always ready to appear and remind the Avatar of what she once had. Through another flashback, we learn that Korra was eventually able to recover enough to move normally, and even get her bending back, and is excited to show Tenzin just how far she's come. It's evident that she's far from the woman she used to be, as the sparring partners she was able to defeat so handily from the beginning of the series were able to take her down, as Korra suffers from instances where instead of seeing the fight before her, she instead sees Zahir. This is just another blow to Korra's self-confidence, especially as Tenzin says that being the Avatar can wait, further adding to her plaguing self-doubts. We soon learn that 2 years have passed since the fight with Zahir, and Korra is still suffering visions of him whenever she fights, and is unable to enter the Avatar state. It's here where we really start seeing the events are starting to have an effect on Korra, the woman unable to eat like she should, sleep like she should. And what's more, having given up on Katara's care, Korra decides to strike out on her own by telling her family that she's wanting to return to Republic City. It's through the simple event of being unable to stop a pair of robbers and seeing the vision of her Avatar self standing over Republic City that Korra truly hits bottom. It's this element here, the depression and pain that Korra is going through that really makes this episode so strong. It shows that despite having loved ones, people who care for her, encourage her, and do the best they can to aid her, that she's unable to stop the suffering that she's going through. In fact, it's her friends and family's actions that cause her to spiral further out of control. Korra's constantly being told to wait, to recover slowly, that the world will be fine without her while she regains her strength. But that's the exact opposite of what she's wanting to hear. Even if she knows that she wouldn't be up to what she was capable before, being sidelined is eating her up in ways that no one else knows other than Asami, being the only one who Korra is able to confide into. It builds up to a scene that, well, let me put it this way, there's a reason I put up the warning from before. After having not moved onward into Republic City, we get a scene of Korra tossing in the last piece of her Water Tribe clothing into a river, and, after hesitating for a moment, cutting her hair. I bring focus to the scene because, as many people know, both Avatar and Korra have a lot of roots in East Asian culture. Between the bending, the art style, and many of the elements of the different nations of the world, this series draws heavy inspiration from that part of our real world. And the cutting of one's hair symbolizes the end of an era, with it actually being used in Avatar itself to show that Iroh and Zuko have cut all ties with the Fire Nation. For Korra, it's a much deeper aspect of her character. Whereas Iroh and Zuko cut their hair as a matter of honor, Korra does it to separate herself. She's ending one part of her life, one that she feels that she can no longer fulfill or find the support she believes she needs in order to regain what she once had. She no longer has confidence in the world that she once knew. This is further supported by Korra going to the world of spirits immediately afterwards, trying to find some answer in the beyond, only to deny any help offered by the spirits when they approach her. Depression is something that feels like it doesn't have an answer, a way of fixing it, and in many ways it doesn't. The loathing, dark feeling of it hanging over mind and soul is something that not many people are capable of handling on their own, and it's something that is rarely, if ever, shown in media for children. It's here where I think most would realize something about the series when talking about episodes like this one. The Last Airbender was a kids' cartoon that had mature themes. Legend of Korra is a mature cartoon aimed at kids. For the next several months, Korra travels the world in her search for answers, with the glowing-eyed specter of her former self always one step ahead of her, watching, waiting, and ever silent. After a point, Korra decides that she has finally had enough of her shadow, chasing after it into an underground fighting ring. She participates in the fight to strike back against her avatar self, but is thrashed soundly, which leads us back to the start of the episode where she's healing herself. It's finally as we reach the end of the episode that we have one spirit that Korra had met before helping her out, even though she had refused their offer from before. Leading her into the swamp, Korra once again finds her avatar self, and this time there's no escaping it as it fights her. Being exhausted from her travels and unable to fight like she had before, Korra eventually gets captured by the same chains that held her down when she was poisoned, yanking her down into the liquid metal that had wounded her. The episode ends with Korra finding herself in a cave, an old woman looking over her. It's as the woman mentions that she knew the Avatar in a previous life, does Korra bring in a light to reveal the only other character from the original series that had yet to make a proper appearance.
Toph?
Nice to see you again, Twinkle Toes.
Korra Alone, like Zuko Alone before it, is arguably one of the best episodes of Korra's entire series. I'd personally say that is one of the best episodes of the entire Avatar franchise, going into matters that aren't ever really shown in all the adventurous, wild, and often fantastical media we consume these days. It shows the pain of someone not only suffering from a traumatic experience, but the recovery from that experience, how hard it can be even with help, and the depression that often comes when it feels like nothing can be done to fix what is wrong. It's a very real and very serious subject that most people tend to ignore or look over, that is given a full in-depth episode that even a kid could understand. What's more is that it doesn't even end here. While not part of this particular episode, which I felt was an all-in-one focus package that delved into these subjects, they do show the hope of getting through these issues, the family that can be there regardless of the situation, and the answer that Cora discovers how not only to heal herself, but to regain what she has lost. And though this doesn't mean everyone else can find the path through these problems that plague their lives, there is some hope. If there's one final thing I would want to end off with, it would be the creative process behind this episode, as it was written by one of the creators of Avatar, Michael DiMartino. Not only is he the one who wrote the episode, he specifically mentioned in the commentary track for this episode that when he was writing it, he kept in mind the feelings and experiences of fans who were suffering through the same issues.
Yeah, and I was thinking a lot of, we've met, fans over the years of, and to this day, people who say like, how the show, the original series or Korra, like got them through like an illness or a death of a loved one or
suicidal
periods, like all these very intense things that people go through in life, and like, so I really had that in mind when I was writing this and like making sure to like honor those stories we'd heard.
The Legend of Korra as a series is flawed. This is true. It's not the near perfect fantasy epic in the same way that Avatar: The Last Airbender was. But in many respects, it held lessons, stories, and an overall theme that I don't think is given enough credit by the end of the day. The series is about a young woman finding her place while having both the expectations of the world and herself on her shoulders. And while it may trip up on some parts of its storytelling, I think Korra alone shows just how powerful it can be when it got it right. And with that done, I'm going to tell you all right now that I'm probably going to be doing something a great deal more lighthearted next time. The last 2 episodes have been dealing with some very heavy subjects, and I think we need something a little sillier next time. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do just yet, but be sure that I'm wanting to give people a bit more of a smile. But with all that said, I hope I've done a good job to entertain you, and I'll do my best to do so again in the future. Hopefully you'll follow along with my content by subscribing and doing all those other things that gives us YouTubers life. If you wish to support me a bit more, I do have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content. But until next time, stay frosty.